On this week's episode of Talkin Townball, the 2025 season is upon us, and we rejoice in it. We'll go over a few mid-April scores and venture into the minutes of the last state board meeting. We welcome special guest Jon Euerle for an interview today. He's been on the bump for the Buffalo Bulldogs for a really long time, you guys. We discuss Buffalo baseball, and we might even get his input as we enter the dangerous land of Class B state predictions. Dun, dun, dun. So smuggle yourself a new Glarus Spotted Cow and grab a pork chop on a stick. It's time to talk Townball.
Welcome to Talkin Townball. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, and right out of the gate, if you have a team Twitter account, which most teams do, please put if you won or lost. Don't feel bad if you lost. Just say we lost. So, we can talk about that a little bit. But I do have some. I got St. Nick's 6, St. Wendell 5. I believe that was from a week ago. Also, I believe this is a last weekend score. Spring Hill thumps Lake Henry 16-2. That's a Stearns County League matchup. And we have an upset. Well, we need to talk about if this is an upset because we have Class C St. Wendell 6 beating Class A St. Bonnie 5. So that's a quad one win for St. Wendell.
Statement win.
They, for those that don't know, St. Bonnie made leaps and bounds to A, going from Class C to Class A this year. But, I don't know, C went over an A team. That's good.
You're going to see more matchups like that. I mean, there's going to be more A versus C matchups. And, I mean, competitively, it's probably a lot closer with this new format than it was ever before. Those teams that were sitting in A previously, those are Metro teams. Those are loaded teams full of talent. Now it's a little bit more, mixed up. A little bit more mixed up.
Yeah, so for the Crow River Valley, that's St. Bonnie's out of there, and we also have Waconia in Class A. I don't know off the top of my head how many C teams they're playing. They were given the option to, hey, just tell us who you want to cross over B with, who you want to cross over C with, and we'll just put it on the schedule as a league game. So something to keep an eye on as we, for the first time ever in Townball, have leagues that are spread across 3 classes. Speaking of classes, Class A recap. What did we get for feedback? Positive, negative?
Okay.
I saw
we had a poll.
The poll
was out. I was running the Twitter and I said, okay, let's give them 3 options. Pretty damn good. All right, right in the middle, and then stick to your own class type stuff. Maybe stick to C. I think the overwhelming response is we either did okay or pretty good. I mean, obviously, there's a few people that maybe felt a little bit disgusted that maybe their team was left out, and that could lead to a couple votes for the negative, and that's fine. We're going to have a lot of that, and I think as we get into B and C, we're going to get even more of that. So, I think the response was pretty decent, but I also don't think we maybe went too wildly one direction over another. We only know what we know, and that's former results. We get into B and C, we start knowing rosters a little bit more and movement and players here and there. We might have a little more insight into things and maybe a few more upsets.
And when we do our B predictions later in the show, we'll go through every team in each district. I don't want to say we dropped the ball. We didn't know how long it was going to take. We didn't want it to be a 2-hour segment that everybody falls asleep to. So we didn't go through every single team. We went through most of them. I would say probably 5 of the 8. We rattled off everybody, but there were some we forgot about, so we will we're not going to apologize for that. No. We just didn't do it. All right. State board meeting was also it actually happened right before we recorded the last podcast, but I see the minutes are out, so we have to have an update on our University of North Dakota aviation students playing, hopefully in the rabble.
We don't know if they're related at all, but I've been thinking about nicknaming them the Wright Brothers. Two aviation students flying plane. Is that a lame? Is that okay?
I think that's
fine.
pretty good. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Yeah. So if you didn't pick up on it, there's two aviation students taking classes at University of North Dakota in Grand Forks. They must not technically be from that area, but there's no baseball team at UND. So they just want to play town team over the summer. And there's nobody within 30 miles of Grand Forks. So the closest league is the Rabble. And looks like the state board voted unanimous 9-0 that, if they want to make the jaunt to one of the teams in the Red River Valley League, go for it. So
I think are we all good with that vote? I approve of that.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Let
no
these
doubter.
guys play.
Yeah, no doubter.
So now we just got to keep an eye on the waiver wire to see who they play for, because we're going to probably be that's going to be one of our teams.
Yeah, we're going to support the Wright Brothers,
the Wright brothers.
wherever they land.
Good.
Okay, how about this?
No puns.
Kind of an idea that was like haphazardly put out on Twitter by a burner.
Yeah.
Why don't they just make their own team?
Yeah. So we saw on Twitter. There was a burner that had said, well, you'd think with big population up there and in that type of metro area, they could just put together their own team kind of deal, which is like, man, do you know what it do you know what it takes to start a team from scratch? Two, we're like weeks away from the season rolling.
Yeah. I followed another account. They were trying to list off teams that have gone defunct. Okay. And I did see an East Grand Forks, Mass. Was that a name of a team?
Yep.
So there was history of baseball up there. Obviously, there's I think Fertile might have even had a team up there, but obviously they're having issues once you get up there. Travel is like such an issue, and to get guys in and say, are you ready to drive 2 hours consistently for an away game? That's tough, especially college age guys. Their commitments are a little bit different. So
that's also a big. That would be a big hang up for in these two guys in the Wright Brothers situation specifically. Yeah. That would be tough because I don't know where they're from originally.
We're gonna say they're from Devils Lake, North Dakota.
And
sure,
they don't have their roots may not be anywhere.
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Okay, they're Kitty Hawk.
Kill Devil Head, North Carolina.
Wherever they're from, they're going to school at UND. Aviation classes. Mm-hmm. They may not be from specifically there, and now you're asking them to start a team in that area,
dive into this community head first and just like
who knows if they know anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Networking is big, and you're talking about do you rent a field, or what's the home site look like? Who's going to manage?
You got to get into a league.
Yeah, and this is all happening.
You have to have uniforms.
Yeah, a month before this season is really fully going. I mean, ridiculous ask. These guys just want to play ball this summer. Don't put that on them. They don't deserve that. So they're a victim of geography and circumstance. So
yeah, and maybe this tweet isn't directed specifically at these two. Maybe there's just a history of, well, why can't there be another team up there because there is a bigger population, and that's a fair question. Mm-hmm. But I also think don't put it on these two.
No,
don't make the example out of them.
Right, and like Ryan said last week, why even have the radius? Delete it. Let the boys run free. Stay wide.
I didn't mean it like run free,
exactly.
But again, if you're going to drive 50 miles to play, good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Exactly.
Other notes here from the state board meeting. Oh, I just saw this one. Crover Valley League, letter regarding college player rule. Chris Dahman, I believe he is from Hamburg. And I believe this is looking into if a college player actually saw the field.
Right.
Is the rule that they're talking
about. Should they count for points if they were technically rostered but
They played fall ball. They were on the team picture and the website. You go to the Wayback Machine and their pictures on the roster.
Pinch ran one time.
I think it's not even that.
Right.
Like pitched 2 innings on the JV team. A lot of my ex schools have JV
squads.
Yeah, so I have a couple Delano guys that are at Concordia Moorhead, and I think they've just been logging the JV innings.
Yeah, we've had guys in the same boat.
So it's like they quit all of a sudden, or they don't go back out, or they transfer and college isn't for them.
They always carry that.
They always carry that. Yep. So I think that's what that was. So
do you think it's easier to just count them for points, because then you can kind of make it black and white? You're a collegiate player, whether you saw the field or not, you were on a roster. I know they can go case by case, but
if you're going
to do that for everybody, I don't know.
It would become a headache, I think, for the state board, and that's maybe where their motivation is we don't maybe want to go down that road where we have to make a case for every single player that's ever come through.
Well, we're also technically policing ourselves, and then if you want to cheat and you get caught, then you face the consequences.
That's right.
When they were doing the points, and I think they had like 18 different ways they could calculate points. I know it was thrown out like, well, do you have a different point total from when they're actually in college as opposed to when they're out of college? There's some guys that are 34 years old that are better than they were when they played college, and then there's just guys that 1 or 2 years out of college, they're not even half as good as they used to be too.
Yeah.
So is it like they count for X amount of points that the year and or years they're on that college roster, and then you start different points.
That's such a gray area. That would be so hard to, I guess, try to figure out.
Yeah, tough to police.
Who's worth what.
It would be. Yeah, it's just, but most of the time, if you're going to try to pick up somebody who's going to cost you points, they probably played a little bit. So
for sure.
Right.
Well, I would say, and back to the point you made on we police ourselves, and you could cheat and you could sign a guy and do whatever. I would say props to Hamburg then for getting out ahead of it. They're trying to make a case for their guy. He was on a roster but didn't play or whatever the situation is.
I think literally in a team picture.
So instead of just saying, well, we're not going to count them, whatever, no one will know, they're bringing it up at a board meeting. It's good to get ahead of it.
Absolutely. Interesting to track. Was there any sort of do you have any idea if they had a response to that, if they're going to look into it, or if they even thought about it?
Oh, I'm sure, especially after this year, it'll continue to come up, since the points is going to, if the point system stays around, which I don't see why it wouldn't, there's going to be all different kind of things thrown around that are like because everybody wants to stay under a certain threshold.
You have to have some sort of point system, but everyone will always have questions on what that will be.
Introduce decimal points.
There you go.
Points.
Yep. If they're a Division II guy, they're 3 points. But if they played that season, they're 3.5.
There you go.
As a sophomore, he was lights out. But then as a junior, he stunk, and we took half a point away from that because he was bad.
The Russian judge deducted a half point. Yeah. Very cool. No, we'll keep an eye on that as we go. But any other items from that state board meeting?
No, nothing that really jumped out at me. A lot of college guys that are playing Northwoods League. They're gonna stick around. It looks like they finalized the number of bids each district, section, John, and region.
Yep. I've gotten it down. I've figured it out. I'm really locked in this week, so I'm excited.
It looked like an update from Broughton, Gaylord, and Hutch. All's going according to plan. So we don't have to move that state tournament back to Dassel, Delano, and Litchfield this year. That sounds good. But yeah, I think that's about it. We can. I think we got to get into our guests now.
Absolutely. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Jon Euerle.
Welcome back to Talkin Townball. We have a very special guest on the pod today. A man of many names, many nicknames. We're going to kick this off with his, I don't know, most infamous one. Today we have the older guy, Jon Euerle, on the podcast.
Wow. Good to have
Older
Jon
guy.
here.
Should we get it? Let's do that one right away. Older guy, you're the older guy.
Older guy, yeah. I know you guys touched on burner accounts a few episodes ago, and older guy was actually given to me by what I assume is a burner account. He replied to Rob LaPlante, the local newspaper guy in town, and asked something to the effect if older guy was going to be pitching in that game, which was in reference to myself, which, looking back at this time, I was probably only 30 at the time. And so older guy, it was, probably meant in jest, but you just run with it. And so now we're going on older guy almost a decade later, and I just own it now.
This guy's been older guy forever.
And you've embraced it. You got to love it.
I thought it was just because nobody can spell your last name right, ever.
Well, absolutely. That could be that's a good way of looking at it, I guess, yeah.
Well, so you're the older guy, but let's go back to when you were the young gun, which had to have been at least 84 years ago, apparently.
It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years. Give us the, I don't know, start from the top, the beginning, your story.
Yeah, I started playing townball 2006. So this will be my 20th season.
Wow.
20.
Graduated in 2004, took a couple years off, and then decided I wanted to come back and play again. So called up Rube Nathy for the Litchfield Blues, said interested in coming back, and I think I threw 80-some innings that first summer right back into it, and been doing it ever since.
You gotta love it.
Right into the fire.
Thank you, Rube.
Thank you, Rube. Yeah, Litchfield High School grad, Jon Euerle. I want to say you were maybe a couple years, maybe you were an 05 grad? 04 grad.
Even older,
older guy here. But just me being a young 07 grad, yeah, Jon Euerle, just a few years ahead of me and walking the hallways of Litchfield High School. But you had how many years in Litchfield then?
So I played in Litchfield from 06 to 09. Got married and moved to Buffalo in late summer of 2009. Started playing with the Bulldogs in 2010, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. So when you look at that Litchfield team, Litchfield Blues, if you didn't know, they had some success in the late 90s, early 2000s. When you got on that team, what was the vibe? I mean, compared to what you're doing now, what were the Blues early on?
Yeah, that first year, definitely a veteran team. So it was a lot of the guys that had been playing, all through the 90s into the early 2000s, and they were kind of on the very last leg, right?
Right.
So I got a very good education from guys like Russ Nathy, Dalen Jones, Dallas Stoffel, Jeff Oline, my old high school coach. You got to see him in a different light.
For sure.
Which was fun. And so it was actually a really good experience for me, even though we were, at best maybe a 500 team at the time, just to kind of see the way they went about it, their approach. Obviously, it's very different from what you're used to,
right.
Only playing in college or in high school. And like I said, just a good experience to kind of learn from those guys, what to do and maybe what not to do.
Exactly. You learn by watching, and sometimes you learn to not do by watching as well, because that group was a wild group, and it's weird how your town ball experience can be kind of dictated by the roster. If you have a team that averages 20 years old, it's a different vibe completely. I mean, you look at a team made up of guys in their early 30s, mid 30s, you're going to learn a lot more probably in that dugout than you would anywhere else. And that's why when I look at that roster, you were put on as a 22-year-old guy. Yeah, you probably learned a lot of things that you would have not learned anywhere else, and you kind of carry that on then to Buffalo. When you move to the Buffalo area, what did that roster look like? I mean, the past few years, Buffalo's been kind of a powerhouse team, especially in the North Star League.
Right.
What did that look like early on?
Yeah, so 2010, joined a team that was pretty young, younger than Litchfield, but they had a lot of talent at the time. And we actually qualified for the state tournament in 2010 for the first time, I think, in 20 years or so.
Wow.
And so coming from a team that had, had its struggles in Litchfield, I kind of thought I fell into something pretty lucky, right? Wow, this is easy. We've got a bunch of young guys. We're good. We're in the state tournament.
Right.
We're going to do this every single year. And that's not what happened at all. We kind of, in some ways, peaked with that core group in 2010. We lost a few, in 2011, 2012. And the bottom really fell out 2013, 14, 15. I mean, we're talking, 3, 4, 5 win type teams. So I've seen the full spectrum of success and lack of success. And it's a really good perspective, though, too, because, sometimes you think, is this really worth doing?
Right.
You're showing up, you're putting a lot of time into it, obviously, and the results just aren't there. The commitment's not there. You might look at the roster and say, even if these guys stick around, I'm not sure what the ceiling is here, right?
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to kind of start to come out of that more, right? And then it wasn't until 2017 that we actually made it back to the state tournament. And that's one of my favorite teams that I've ever played on, just for the fact that we were really scrappy. I wouldn't say, if you looked at our roster, and especially compared to our current rosters, we would beat that team today, right?
Right.
But that team was just a true team. They kind of did what they needed to do, and we ended up making a mini run that year, I think, to the final 16 or so.
Sure.
Won a couple games, but really fond of that team just because of the guys that we had and the way we went about it. And then, again, 2017 ends, and then we have a couple down years, 18, 19, not much going on, hovering around 500. COVID year 2020, we kind of take off with a new group of young guys. And now we've kind of held that core now the last, 4 or 5 years, and we're starting to bear the fruit from that.
Right.
And then certainly last year was a great run, a little short, gives us a lot of hope kind of coming into this season. But again, you never know. It's year to year. I have a ton of respect for those teams that consistently make it back year after year, because my experiences show that it's not easy, not something you take for granted, and you gotta do the work. You gotta put in the work, put in the time, and hopefully the results follow. But you never know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned like a favorite team. It's weird to think about that, because I've had some really rough years, early on since I've started managing 9 years ago or whatever. And you start seeing, okay, a little successes here and things start building here, and you start to really you don't take anything for granted. You take your little wins, and you hit certain goals, and it takes a certain group to kind of pull themselves out of those holes, those darker times. So I can understand that. Jordan, you've been on with the Saints for a while too. I mean, You've seen the Saints at really high levels, and you've seen them at the lower levels too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of you kind of vibe with Johnny on this too.
Yeah, similar to your. So in 2010, you had gone, and then down years until 2017. And in 2010, you said it had been like 20 years since the team had gone. Yeah, we the Saints, we had a ton of success, like, for a long time, through the 90s into the early 2000s, and then we didn't go a couple of years, and then in 2011 we went, and similar to you, I joined the team as a really young guy, and a lot of veteran guys, and a lot of them were still playing at a really high level. And then you kind of saw, this is the tail end of most of those guys through the early 2010s. And we went in 2011 and have not gone back since. And we've had years where we've been close. Like, I think there was a stretch of 3 or 4 years that we were a game away, and it always happened to be like Loretto, and we'd play them 3 or 4 years in a row, and they bested us that many times in a row. So we've been close, and then, post that, we've been not as close. And like you said, John, you take little wins here and there, and I've been managing for a couple of years. In the past couple, we've taken steps forward. We've gotten back into our region, whether it's in the play-in style. And then after that, we just made it outright, and we've run into some tough teams, some of them in this room.
Right.
But yeah, you take your wins here and there, and you try to build on those little successes. And you had touched, Johnny, on you had in 2020, a core group of young guys, and you're starting to see the fruits of that now. Touch on how important that is, and like those guys may have been young and new to the team at the time, and now they're probably leaders on your team.
Well, and not to cut you off, but that was Corey's first year, Corey Brown's first year managing, and I feel like he's been a huge part of your success too. Just the calming demeanor and the way he manages everything and manages some of your characters on the team.
Absolutely. I give Corey a ton of credit. I've played for now, I think 3 or 4 different managers while in Buffalo, and Corey's just his dedication to it is second to none. He holds everybody accountable. He's, like I said, very dedicated to it, and he just leads by example. And we're really kind of seeing what that stability looks like. And yeah, to your point, Ryan, he identified guys that had talent. We got them signed. We made sure that they had a positive experience. I think so often, a lot of young guys, especially in our situation, hey, you want to come play for the Buffalo Bulldogs, 2019, 2020? They didn't even know who we were,
right.
And so trying to get over that hurdle is a big one. But now we've established ourselves in a way that, now guys want to play for the Bulldogs when they're in high school. They're coming to games. We're putting on camps in the winter, and that's something they're looking forward to. And so I think, putting that foundation, that pipeline in place is huge. And obviously we're more advantaged than other communities in the sense of, our size and things like that. But you still have to give these guys a reason to come out and make it worth their while. And I think more than anything, that's kind of what Corey's brought to the table, that dedication and that reason to believe.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun to watch. We've had our battles with Buffalo over the last few years, and it just seems like they're always bringing up some new young talented kid. And also, just like anyone else in Minnesota that's had high level talent, the Northwoods League can be kind of something you battle here and there too. And I know Corey has mentioned that a few times, but you've had talented kids come through that high school system, and you've kind of had to work around that Northwoods League. And it's always kind of this you're juggling your roster, your what ifs with, what guys for sure are going to be around. But I think Buffalo, what you've been able to do, keeping your highly talented kids, and I think of, like, off the top of my head, like Cal James has been huge for that roster, right? Keeping him in town and in the summer. He's never missed a summer since. He's
never missed a summer. He's definitely been in and out when he was in college playing Northwoods, but Cal's the kind of guy that he'd play baseball every day, right?
Yes.
So he's going to be there when he can be there, and our kind of philosophy with Northwoods is we would never tell a guy not to do it, right? It's a kind of not a once in a lifetime type thing, but you only have a couple years to do it, right? And so. Giving those guys that experience, we're not going anywhere. Bulldogs hopefully are going to be here in another 20 years, right? So go do what you need to do.
Johnny Euerle will still be pitching on the
mound. We'll see. Have me back if I still am. But.
Well, and another thing that I think is pulling these kids in, historic Benfield Mills Park. Can we talk about that for a moment? Jordan, you mentioned before the interview, we talked about it a little bit, but I didn't know that this was a term actually coined by you, John.
Yeah, it part of my responsibilities with the Bulldogs is also a bit of marketing, and so I kind of run our Twitter account for the most part, our Instagram account for the most part, But, I mentioned our leaner years, right? We're struggling to get enough gate to pay for the umpire that night.
Sure.
And so I just started referring to Benfield Mills as historic Benfield Mills every time I referenced it online. And someone actually asked me, the history of it. What was so historic about Benfield Mills? And I said, I have no idea. It just sounds a heck of a lot better. And that's what we're rolling with.
Boy.
And I'll never forget when Fox 9 came out for the Townball tour. They're talking about Benfield Mills, and the guy on air said historic Benfield Mills, and I knew at that moment we had arrived.
You had made it.
Yeah.
And historic Benfield Mills, it also has another accolade, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, it is. This has never been disputed, but it is the best ballpark behind a target in Wright County and possibly the entire state of Minnesota, maybe the country.
The world.
Yeah, the world. So we do have that distinction. Like I said, we may be, I think we're a one of one in that regard.
Yeah.
Unique. Wow.
Yeah, and you guys have, we've all, being in the North Star League, we've been to historic Benfield Mills several times over the years, and you guys have definitely made some improvements there, even just recently. Yeah. Do you have anything else going on that you're working on currently?
Yeah, so we did get new lights this last winter, which will be welcome news for anyone who's ever played outfield at night there.
Right.
I know that's been pretty tough. So if these lights don't improve that experience, maybe it's haunted grounds or something. But we're looking forward to getting those in use. We added some bullpens in the last couple of years. Obviously, just the field itself in terms of kind of burning down the infield, regrading everything. We rebuilt the mound, rebuilt home plate. We bumped back the dugouts and kind of made those wider. Mm-hmm. And we're still working on things. I mean, as you guys all know, there's always something you can be doing at the ballpark.
Yep.
Correct.
And the biggest thing to remember with that, especially is it doesn't happen overnight, right? In very few instances are you going to be able to just kind of flip a switch and here's a couple $1 million, go build whatever you want.
Right.
It kind of has to be this incremental type build.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we have our eye on right now. Just how do we continue to make it a better experience for the players, the fans, everyone else.
I think that just going to meetings over the past 6-7 years, I think just talking to Corey a little bit, Corey Braun, the manager of Buffalo, his goal is Buffalo wants to be a region site, right. And I think that is kind of a good bar.
A what site?
Well, here's where I'm going to correct you. In the past,
no, you're right.
In the past, it was a region, but now if Buffalo's going to host, they've got to be a district site. Okay, I'm glad I could clear that up. But in the past, the bar was set, and that was we want to be a region site, and what do we have to do to build to that? And it's, okay, make sure you're seating, you've got, bathrooms, you've got perimeter fencing, you've got this and that. And then, you start working towards that. Because I think once you can establish yourself as a site that is suitable, that means that, okay, we can start hosting these tournaments, we can bring in people, the money starts flowing a little bit more. And that's when things start to really take off. And you talk about these dream projects. I know Corey, even at our last meeting, he flashed this, what do you even call it when it's like
it's a hype video.
It's a hype video.
Basically.
It
a promo package if you're a wrestling fan.
It pans to this like futuristic Benfield Mills, and there's these nice seats and this grandstand is beautiful, and we go, that's nice. That is nice. And Corey's like, it's, a couple, maybe $1 million, $1.2 million.
$4.8 billion taxpayer money, guys. Sorry.
What are you going to have a little meat raffle? What are you going to do to pay for it? But they're working towards something, and big ideas, big dreams, but you're taking steps, and that's exciting to see. And I think anyone in the same league should get excited about that too, because anytime I see a team putting in major improvements at a field, I get excited because you're for sure playing a game there every year. You're visiting, you get to see something new. The surface is going to improve, and you get excited about that. So everybody wins. It's an everybody win type thing. So excited to see where the future goes for historic Bentfield Mills. I do want to mention this. It seems like Litchfield, we'd have to travel to Buffalo on a Wednesday night. Just the worst travel day of the week, obviously. So I get like 10 guys to show up to a Buffalo game. And the entire time there's a trap shooting league in left field.
Yes.
So if you get there on a Wednesday night, you'll hear about 500 shotgun shots go off, and that's it just adds to the ambiance, the historic nature of the field. So, just a fun area.
But they also got a rodeo.
Yes.
They do.
Yeah.
So there's a chance there's some buckle bunnies walking.
Okay. So, I haven't seen any yet, but I'll hold out hope on that.
You can't play them on a Wednesday night. Do a better job scheduling.
I guess I gotta, do better. But no, it's a great spot, and it has a lot of potential. It really does.
I'll say this, and now that I'm out of the North Star League, seeing how another league operates, I do look back and at my time in the North Star League, we were maybe a little strict on what you needed to host regions, because throughout the state, I think a lot more teams, a lot more ballparks get an opportunity to host.
Sure.
I mean, in the Crow, if you don't have lights, they play day games there, and then they play night games. I mean, at least you get a little bit of a bite of the apple, and maybe it's something I wish now, looking back, I would have just fought for more. But the other, they had Joe, and then going into Corey for managing at Buffalo, and maybe Corey didn't want to jump on that right away. I know it's in the future plans, but just something that, maybe now being in a district and separate a little bit from the, half of the North Star League teams, and you have other leagues making up your district, that maybe it's a rotation that everybody gets an opportunity. And it doesn't, I will say it was pretty strict on what you needed to host regions, and I think that sometimes that was a little short-sighted.
Yeah, for the North Star League, it was like there are for sure things, lights, perimeter fencing, access to, I don't know, parking might even been something they looked at, but only like 5 or 6 teams out of the 12 are hitting the mark, and it was almost like, well, then you get a 5 or 6 team rotation, and the other 6 or 7 teams, we're sorry, but we're not even going to consider you. Yeah, I can understand that. You look now outside of our bubble, like you said, people are being more flexible for teams that don't have those amenities. And it's the teams that don't have the amenities that probably need to host more.
Yeah.
It's not because they're lazy, it's not because they can't do a good job. It's because, some, luckily, or unluckily in the past, they didn't get lights that they wanted, or something didn't quite, hit their mark where they weren't able to get something like that. Whereas, like, on my end, we're lucky to have lights. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we got lights, and just kind of fell into that. So, I think that, we were a little too strict, and we could probably look at that situation a little bit differently.
And the regions and districts and sections, they are getting more creative. I think that's one thing that's proved. I remember going to North Star League meetings, and I know John would step in for Corey once in a while. There was this weird sense that, like, the state board was watching us so closely, how we put together our they weren't.
Well, and I think that people are so worried about their admission numbers that if we put it at a field where you didn't have these A+ everything great, well, maybe our admission numbers are down. It's like, well, then we need to at least try it out. They said that about us way out west in Litchfield. Are people even going to show up out into the cornfields,
Yeah.
And we put out a great number. And it kind of silenced the haters a little bit, and that was good to see. Why not give it a shot for a team that maybe doesn't have the same level of...
Well, and I think there's other kind of just like off the field stuff too, though, that you would have to provide, like at a bare minimum, you would have to provide, like you have to be able to charge admission. You have to be able to probably sell beer, I would think. I don't know if that's like a You have to be able to do that, but
Yeah.
I would assume you're expected to. But
Sure.
but there are fields, I know in our league, where you can't. I mean, Waverly Elementary, I don't know. You probably can't sell beer on the elementary
High
ground.
School, Rockford High School.
Yeah, and that's where you got to get creative, though. Like Kevin with Rockford, if he wants to host a region,
Yeah.
right? Is that still region?
Correct.
Okay. He would have to probably work something out with the school. Same with like Waverly if they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to do certain things at a bare minimum, and depending on where your field is, you might not have the option. But yeah, get creative and try to work around
I think we put a bow on that discussion and just say we're pro Buffalo district host site.
Yeah.
In the future, if not immediately next year. I know you guys are in Watkins this year. We got to bring it back to Buffalo. Push for that 100%. We'd love to see it. So, talking about, we're gonna go back a little bit to your history. Can we talk about your draftee status? I mean, you've obviously made state a handful of times with the Bulldogs, but those years where you guys maybe tripped up in regions or wasn't able quite to make it, you've always been, Johnny, from as far as I can remember, a first rounder, maybe a second rounder, and was that bulletin board material if you fall to that second round?
For those that don't know, Jon Euerle, not only is he a fun guy with fun nicknames and plays at historic Benfield Mills, he's a good pitcher. Like a guy that if his team's not going, someone's taking him and taking him early.
Gamer.
No pun intended.
100%. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, kind of throughout the years, and what teams have you been blessed to play on, and maybe what teams have you been cursed to play on?
Yeah, I think I've been drafted 13 or 14 times now throughout my career, and for me personally, always an honor. I know some guys, their season's done, and sometimes they think, maybe I'm done too. I don't want to throw my name in the hat, anything like that. I'd encourage anyone, if you can be drafted, make yourself eligible. The experience is unbelievable. You get to meet different guys, different teams, kind of see how they work, see what their dugout vibes are kind of like and everything else. But, you only get to do this once, right? So for me, I'm never a no, right? If I can do it and someone wants me, I'm going to be there. The first team I was ever drafted by was Freeport Black Sox. I think that was 2006, 2007. And again, great experience. First time ever going to the state tournament. They were kind of a more veteran team at that time. The Hess boys, Nate Klopacki, just really had a good time with them and kind of learning, what it takes to be good, right, and get to that level. In the North Star League, kind of our Region 12C or the old Region 12C, two teams that come to mind are definitely Hutch Huskies and Howard Lake Orphans. Drafted by both of those teams a number of times and made really good runs with each of them. I know with Howard Lake, they made it to the Final Four when it was in Watkins. Blew a ninth inning lead to go to the state championship that year. So right on the doorstep, and then 2016 with Hutch, getting to make that run to, I think, again, the Final Four. Just a lot of fun, right? And that's where I go back to, I'll always say yes, because you never know what's going to happen, and just, you always have more fun, obviously, with your own team, your own guys, but the experience of the state tournament, there's nothing like it. So I'll do it as long as I can. Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mentioned all the way back to Freeport. Can you just confirm that this was the year that were you drafted alongside Jeff Willeen?
Yes. So you mentioned that. Couple of fun things about that.
I want to hear this.
2006. We actually played the Litchfield Blues the first game ever at the Freeport Black Sox new stadium at the time. New then, it's 20 years old now, I guess. But Tim Laudner threw out the first pitch. I remember that. So, they had all the celebrities out for that game. And then, Jeff Willeen, I mentioned, he was my high school coach.
Jeff at the time, about a 40-year-old?
46, I believe.
Still
46,
hucking.
47, still doing it. And, one of my favorite things about Jeff is his humor. He's very, very dry, right? And he would throw batting practice in high school, as a way of getting in shape for the season. And if you are familiar with how he pitched late in his career, he was not a hard thrower. But he could move the ball. He could change speeds. He just knew how to pitch.
A little Greg Maddux.
100%, right? And, he would frustrate high school kids because he's getting all of us out, right? And, you got guys coming back to the dugout saying, he's not even throwing hard. He's not that good. And it's like, well, we haven't got a hit here in 35 minutes. The guy must be pretty good, right? And so, I got to play with him his last year, which was my first year, and we both got drafted by Freeport. And one of my favorite stories about that year is we're at Puts and Faber. I think at that time you could draft into the region, into the state tournament.
Okay.
And, it's one of those 95-degree days, sun's baking into the dugout, and there's a Freeport guy. He'll remain nameless, but he was probably in his late 20s, I'll say, and the rumor was that he had slept in his truck in the parking lot the night before. Pretty rough night for him, and he's dying in the dugout. And he's sitting next to Jeff and I, and he looks over at us, reaches in his bag, gets some pills, pops them in, and he goes, oh, man, I'm too old for this expletive.
Yeah.
And Jeff, of course, as dry as could be, looks over at him and says, you're talking to the wrong guy. Because he's 16, 17 years older than this guy who's barely making it through the game.
Oh, my gosh.
Just an all-time line.
Yes, and if you know Jeff, you of course you know exactly what he looks like when he says that stuff too. That's hilarious. I just think it's fun that you got to, Jeff, kind of an all-time career for longevity, and he's in all these Hall of Fame nows, and you're there. You get a little overlap with that, and kind of funny now. You're starting to take on the moniker, the older guy, and you're approaching these Jeff Laline type years. So, and there's these older guys out there everywhere. We talk about it. Even last week, we talked about a guy retiring who had 20 years under his belt, but I think about locally. Scott Marquardt and Kimball, who's pushing probably 48 now. I mean, he's still.
Do we think he is the oldest guy to ever walk it off in a state tournament?
Oh, well, to win MVP even.
Yeah.
I mean, he was 42 when he won MVP, 41 maybe.
Yeah, still hits a young dude.
Bergstrom, obviously.
Oh yeah, Matt.
I mean,
Bergstrom.
That's a legend.
Crazy, and Jordan being able to pitch to him in the final out for the state championship.
You want to know what the secret was for him catching all those games in the hot sun and 1,000 degrees? He was having someone run. So Delano, you guys had pickles in your concession stand, jumbo pickles.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I think the pickle juice was what did it. He was having people run him pickles, eating that, drinking the juice, strapping the gear back on, and going out there for his 40th inning of the tournament.
My dad puts in septics, does excavating, been doing it his whole life. And when he gets home after, the 90 some odd degree day, he slams the pickle juice because it doesn't make him cramp up.
Yeah,
that's the secret.
That's a note for all state sites. I know when we hosted in 23, Buckman was playing Bird Island, and boy, hot day, just humid, 90 degrees. Guys they're left and right. Pickle juice. We need pickle juice. Guys are cramping left and right. And we're just we're running for pickles. Obviously, we got a lot of cheeseburgers being sold, but we got these tubs of pickle juice. We're running out to Buckman's dugout. So Hutchinson and Gaylord.
You've got some teams asking for bags of ice for some guys' arms, and other teams run the pickle juice over.
Yeah, but that's a note for state sites. For sure have the pickle juice ready.
I love the draftee stories, and I'm going to tell an Avery Leaseman one hilarious from 2023. So we had him in 22, threw a couple games for us. We get him back in 23, and I just, hey, we're probably not going to use you till Labor Day weekend. He's like, that's fine. First state games, weekend 2, Friday night, game's over. One of the concession stand people come and is like, Ryan, send a couple guys, we got a ton of leftover food. So send a couple guys. They come back with 3 trays of French fries, cheese curds, pork chops, burgers, dogs, brats, pretzels, chicken tenders, everything. And I mean, Avery is just housing this stuff.
Where does he put it all?
I bet he had 15 chicken strips. So we come back the next week and we get the Friday night game again. He's not pitching. And I said, now if we win, you'll throw the next one. And he's just like, do you think there's going to be leftovers? I go, when the final out's made and we, talk as a team, after that, you don't have to do the field or anything. You can just go to the concession stand. I mean, he sprinted.
That was a recruiting tool for you, though.
So
we're gonna get him on this
and then
team.
I'm like, all right, it was. I said to a couple of the young guys, I was like, Avery, take Gunner and Gavin. And they came back with 3 trays of food, and he was just.
I promise you, we feed the guys in Litchfield.
No, I know, but it was just like free and.
That's a great story.
Point being, you get a chance to be drafted, do it. There's a lot of fun to be had, people to meet.
And if you're the ones doing the drafting, take care of them guys. Get them a T-shirt, get them the hat, get them the gear, feed them.
Absolutely. They're part of the family for that small time. And to be honest, until they're long gone, they're always going to remember, even to their older days, that time I got drafted by this team and the stories that come from it. And Johnny, the one story we were getting long on stories, but I think we need to talk about you get drafted by Loretto. Can you remind me what year that was?
2022.
2022. Okay. So as you go into that state tournament, what was the setup as far as pitching or where you were going to be in kind of that rotation?
Yeah, I think that Loretto team was kind of unique in the sense of they didn't necessarily have a clear-cut ace necessarily, and so kind of talking to the guys, they had a lot of different ideas about who was going to pitch, who was going to be in relief. From my perspective, it didn't really matter. I'd be fine with either one. Mm-hmm. And so that first weekend, I think they ended up starting one of their own guys, and he kind of got knocked out early. Loretto was in a hole right away in the first inning. And then they had gone to, I believe, Koski then right after that and kind of ran with him.
The young Koski,
Caleb. And then they kind of closed it out with Eric Newman, who was another Buffalo guy. And so they kind of ran through that same concept the next game, but they started Caleb that time. And that was the infamous Bird Island game. So it was Koski versus Kingery. Back and forth game. I think Loretto went up 2-1 in the 7th or 8th inning. Lefty on lefty. Corey Koski turned around Josh Kingery, home run, put him up, and Bird Island ties it in the bottom of that inning. And then it's 2-2. And then Eric Newman comes in, and he throws, I think, 3 or 4 innings, and then I'm warming up, getting ready in case anything happens, and it just so happens something did happen, and so it's bases loaded, 1 out. All right, I'm coming in, right? Runner on third, obviously, game over. And I remember coming into that thinking, tough situation, obviously, yes. But in a weird way, really no pressure at all because, can't do anything about it, sort of thing. First guy got him to kind of jammed him a little bit, infield, grounder to short, got the force out, got a strikeout, and then little did I know the game was going to keep going on and on and on and on and on, and as we know, it ended up going 21 innings, longest game in state tournament history, I think, both in innings and in time, finished after midnight. Of course, it was the Sunday night game. And so I think he got back to Buffalo, got back to my house. I think it was 2:30, 2:45. I couldn't fall asleep. Next thing I know, it's almost 5 a.m. And I'm like, well, I'm probably calling into work, in an hour here. So I took the morning off there, but definitely a game I'll never forget. Just everything that did or didn't happen in it, for a game to go that long, there's got to be a lot of kind of weird things. I think in that one, very little happened in extra innings. Maybe everyone was just so tired from the day that hitting was at a premium. But it was a game I'll certainly never ever forget.
Yeah, what inning exactly did you come in on?
I think I came in the
13th inning, and you basically pitched a complete game.
Yes. I think I was credited with 8 innings or 8 1/3 through it. Losing pitcher. I am the losing pitcher of record, 1 unearned run, but outside of winning the game, I wouldn't change anything about it.
Right. Wow. Yeah, and still another story from a year where you were a draftee. So once again, if you have the opportunity, we're pro draftee podcast. So I want to let everybody know that. Really fun hearing all the stories. I'm sure, everybody's got cool stories. It's just fun to sit down and kind of go over every one of them with as many as we can in this small amount of time. But do you guys have anything else you want to cover with Johnny?
I've got one super important thing I need.
Sure.
I think we need to hit on before we move into the rankings and all that. Johnny, you are a Casey's General Store guy.
Absolutely. Come for the gas, stay for the pizza.
Yeah. So, couple questions I got to hit you with. One, which roast would be your go-to there if you're getting a coffee?
It's got to be the Casey's Classic. There's
Absolutely,
no question about it. It's just pure.
Right.
Yes, that's the best way to describe it.
The standard is the standard.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do you ever venture off and get like a French roast or anything like that?
Very rarely. Only if they're like cleaning it, or out of beans for some reason. But otherwise, I'm not deviating from the classic.
And you said you stay for the pizza.
Yes.
If you're gonna get the pizza, do you have a go-to? Any specific toppings you like?
It probably depends on what I'm doing. Pre-game, I will, steal a slice here and there, but I'll usually go with the sausage if it's pre-game because it's less greasy. If I don't care, then I'm going pepperoni. So there is an art to this.
Yeah, you definitely put thought into it. You don't want to be on the mound thinking I went pepperoni by mistake today.
Exactly. I can't get a grip today. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, so we've covered the coffee, we covered the pizza. There are specific Casey's General Store locations that you probably frequent more than others. I think, you've traveled a lot through Montrose. They had one. They have a different one now. Do you have a take on that? Do you have a favorite store?
I'm definitely an old school Casey's guy. So it kind of broke my heart a little bit when the Montrose one was relocated to the newer, grander location and set up. So now, kind of locally, I'm big on the Rockford location and the Cokato location.
Okay.
Just because those are still the very small footprint, old school setup. Mm-hmm. You never know what you're going to see when you walk in their store. And that's part of the appeal for me personally. And so those are the two that far and away I frequent to and do my best to keep going.
Well, shout out Casey's. We are accepting sponsorships to the podcast, and
as am I.
And Johnny's accepting them too. Maybe I don't know if they have NIL deals for older guys, but you definitely take some coffee beans.
Oh, I'm available. Yeah.
We should mention this too for coming on the podcast today. Jon Euerle was gifted a $5 Casey's gift card to spend however he pleases.
Put a little gas in the tank.
It's what we had in the budget.
A little gas in the tank, I mean, figuratively, a little coffee in the morning, So we're excited to have Johnny on site with us. We don't always have that opportunity with our guests, especially if they're further away, but excited to have you here. I'm glad you covered that. That was big.
It's important stuff that people need to know.
It is really important stuff. Yeah, awesome. You got it, Ryan.
Oh, okay. So John,
yeah.
Next up we are going to do our Class B rankings, and since we're on the Class B side of the table, did you want to stick around with us and critique? So I kind of let John and Jordan do this.
Let's do it. I'll wade into the deep end here.
You want to stick around for the final segment?
Perfect.
Okay. We'll be back then with our rankings.
Class B, let's get at it. All right, we're back. Post-interview here, Jon Euerle. Fun sit down with him, and guess what? He's still with us. So what a treat. What an absolute treat to having Jon Euerle here, kind of add to that Class B representation we've got Ryan Hayes across the table. It is funny where we're sitting. It's Jordan and I on one side, Class C, and we're looking into the eyes of 2 Class B reps. And when we talk about our predictions as to who's going to land these state bids out of each district, we want it to be known that Jordan and we've got a lot more input on this. Hayes, he's going to be abstaining from this class.
When we do our B discussions, we boot him from the room.
We tell Ryan to leave.
And then you'll find out on the next episode when we go over C, he kicks us out of the room for C discussion, and it's him in here for hours by himself.
Yeah, and he looks into a mirror and he tells himself, self-affirmations, and we wait, and it's about a 3-hour process for Ryan.
Yeah, we just wait patiently.
Yep.
And when he's done, he lets us know.
And that's how it works. So today, luckily, we've got our Class B state bid predictions. Big stuff. Class A, pretty successful last week getting those bids out there. We had a good response. Excited to see what our response is from our B predictions. I think it's going to be a little bit spicier because it is more difficult. I mean, to be honest, Jordan, just broadly looking over this stuff, there's some question marks.
There's a ton of teams that definitely could make it, and we have to leave some off, and that's always a tough job to do. But yeah, looking up and down the list, and we briefly talked about this before, but it's like there are some districts where maybe there's 6 teams in it, and we're like 5 or maybe 6 of those could go. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some strong districts. There are maybe some that lack that firepower. But yeah, we're going to go through each and give you an idea of what we're going to pick. So
yeah,
should we start kind of at that higher? Let's start District 8, and we'll work our way down to District 1. District 8 has 3 state bids. Before we jump into that, Ryan, did you have anything to say? You hinted at a district last week. You said half the teams are making it. There's only 6 of them in there. Boy, this kind of looks like the one you were maybe talking about.
It's going to be more of a something I point out next week.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And this District 8, there's 6 teams, and 3 of them are going to go to state. And I know for a fact, because it's out there in the Twitterverse, that the reason half of these teams are going is because they took all of the success points of the teams. Now, originally, it was the Wilmer Rails, not the Wilmer Indians. And the Wilmer Rails have made the state tournament a couple times the last 5 years. And they took all the success points, divided by 6, and this district did average the most. Mm-hmm. But there might be a region in Class C where they obviously didn't do that because, we'll talk about it next week.
I'm excited. Wow, what a tease. Unbelievable. You're a podcast legend, Ryan. I love it. That's great. So let's just jump right into it. District 8, 3 state bids. Coming out of the Corn Belt League, we've got the Bird Island Bullfrogs. That's going to be one of our state bids coming out of District 8. Out of the First Night League, the Fairmont Martins, we've got making it out of there. And out of the Tomahawk East, the New Ulm Brewers. We do want to mention the 3 other teams in that district, the Raymond Rockets, Wilmer Indians, and Laverne Redbirds. I know there's going to be some disappointed Redbird fans, those Southwest Minnesota fans that we talked about last week. Laverne coming into a really tough district here. Raymond Rockets, a state title winning team in 2016.
Yeah, I'm friends with a guy on Raymond, and when he hears this, he's gonna say, "Oh my God, man! What
I've got a Raymond Rocket state winner that's a starter in my Blues lineup." So I'm.
He'll be getting his release.
Yeah. Please,
I'm
Eric,
going back. We'll prove you wrong.
I apologize. Honestly, just use it as bulletin board material. Use us as motivation. But we've got the Bullfrogs, the Martins, and the Brewers coming out of District 8. Do you guys have anything to say on that?
I think the new Wilmer team in this district, I don't know anything about them at all. I don't think anyone does, so it's tough to gauge where they kind of are. But the other 2 teams between Raymond and Laverne, who we've picked to not make it, that's looking up and down all of the districts here, that might be the toughest one. I don't know.
Well, if it's not them, it's two of the others, and
Right,
boy,
yeah. How do you pick?
How do you pick? And that's where it's just a conundrum. Sorry to the Wilmer Indians, first year team. I just don't see a way for that group right now. It's a brand new team. They're going to be, and to my knowledge, new to Townball altogether. It's going to be a learning year for that group.
How cool would it be if they did?
Sure, we can have like a made-for-TV movie about it, but it's too stacked otherwise. So
right, Bird Island, Fairmont, New Ulm, all teams that have had success every year.
Yeah, and we've saw Bird Island the last couple of years has pushed late every year. So that's where we're at with that. District 7. This is where
we're gonna get dicey.
It gets real personal in this room. District 7, three state bids. You know what? I'm gonna name all the teams first in this District 7. We've got out of the Crow River Valley North and the Crow River Valley South. We've got the Delano Athletics, the Watertown Red Devils, the West Tonka Waves, the Carver Black Sox, the Green Isle Irish, the Plato Blue Jays. I almost called them the Potato Blue Jays. They are the Plato Blue Jays, and the Young America Cardinals. Wow.
Who do we got making it?
3 state bids out of that group, out of the CRVL. I wanna say Hayes has really talked up this Young America squad. He thinks they are a very, very formidable team. Could be a favorite in B. So Young America Cardinals are going to get a state bid nod. Otherwise, a team that was disappointed they couldn't make it last year. I think they were upset late in the region. The Watertown Red Devils had some big losses in the regions last year, unable to make it this year. We have them punching the ticket. The Watertown Red Devils going to state out of District 7. And boy, the last pick, I will say this. This was, I don't know if Jordan, if you put any in, I don't know if you put any of this into it. If you had any thought on this pick, or if this was mainly coming from my end, I'll claim it if that's the case. The Plato Blue Jays are going to be the last team out of District 7 to get a bid, and that leaves
off. We have
one guy in this room, Ryan Hayes, who
steaming mad across the table right now.
Steam coming out of the ears. No, and I'll say this, and I think it comes down to, I see Delano and I see Plato playing for a state qualifier. Plato's got some pitching. Really good, like 1-2. I think that they're who's the big man with the hair?
Headkey.
Yeah,
they got Headkey
and they've got Schwartz. Okay, two guys that are gonna be big on any team. Schwartz was like a all-time great pitcher last year.
He set the league strikeout record last year with like 100 and I don't know.
A lot.
A ton.
A ton.
I think was the number.
He's a bona fide ace, and behind him is a 1B type pitcher. The only issue they've had in years past is the bats to support. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those. It was a toss up between our Athletics and our Blue Jays, and we gave the Blue Jays a nod. Delano, I know you're maybe upset right now, but listen, this is motivation, okay? So get out there. That new league, it's going to be tough. It's going to be scary. A lot of unknowns. But
you guys got a target on your back.
Everyone
wants to beat up the new guy.
Well, it's fair enough. We're not joining a league that we think that we're going to just take over and own. Kip Kovar called me weeks ago to kind of get the whole backstory and everything, and he's like, "What do you expect?" And I'm like, for the first time in a decade, I don't know what to expect, which is a really kind of unique, fun feeling. We don't know. We know a little bit about all these teams, and they know probably a little bit about us, but I think that's the excitement in all this. And it's definitely a pitching-heavy league, I would say. We're going to see some big-time arms from these teams, and we'll have to give it our best shot. But, I think it was a good reset for me especially where I was at with my Townball tenure, and a lot of the same thing with the rest of the guys. So it'll be a daunting challenge, and I'm not going to fight you on it. So.
Right.
But it's posted in the dugout already.
Yeah. This audio clip will be played like on the big
loop.
screen in like the 7th inning of some game.
Well, aside from Delano, we've got 3 other teams not making it. West Tonka's kind of a weird one because they've had years where they've looked solid. They've had years where, I don't know.
Kind of a wild card, but also I've heard that they've had some players leave to go to
Gotcha.
some other rosters. So,
but then the other 2, between Carver and Green Isle, both teams that have made it several times in the past few years.
Yeah.
And like you said, Ryan, it's a pitching-heavy league. Green Isle and Carver both have pitchers. They can both definitely win games and be in that same position.
Yeah, Carver and Green Isle are in state in 2023. So
Yeah.
the only one who hasn't in the last couple of years is West Tonka. Well, they've only been a team essentially for a couple of years.
Yeah, they're the
Right.
newest team.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, when I look through the new districts, especially within B, it's just the consolidation of talent. A lot of these districts, they only have 2, 3, maybe 4 at most bids, but if you look top to bottom, 5, 6, 7 teams in those districts have been to the state tournament very recently.
Right.
And so, that's kind of a consequence of the reclassification. I think if you look at Class C, especially the last 5 to 8 years, it's a lot of the same teams year after year after year. And now with the new district Class B set up, it's not going to be able to be like that anymore, right? Some of these teams just are not going to make it. And it's going to be a really interesting 24 team.
Well, it's going to make for
tournament.
it's going to make for some wild districts. Like
Absolutely.
if you want to go watch some fun, exciting baseball, go check these out.
and we should speak on the draft for B is a 2-round pitcher draft, correct?
Yeah, so C remains 3 draftees, pitching only.
Boy.
B is 2 picks, pitching
Imagine
only.
you come out of this district as the 1 seed and you have your pick of maybe somebody's one from whether that is maybe Plato is tripping up. They've got 2 guys that you can go out and grab that are just absolute shutdown type guys.
If Delano does not make it, like we've made absolutely clear here.
We're very clear.
Think about some of the arms you can grab from a team like Delano.
No, and in Watertown when they tripped up in the regions last year, it was Watertown Red Devil being drafted after Watertown with Red Devil. I mean, there was pitching, and I think that the teams out of the CRVL, they benefited a ton.
Yeah.
Because Watertown,
A guy
tripped up.
like Pat Cheetah from Watertown, who when Watertown goes, he's a guy that can be lights out on the mound, and when they don't go, he can be lights out for anybody else.
That is correct. Yep. And Johnny, you can even speak on this too, because Max Otto from Delano last year joined you guys. I mean, what did that kind of do for the confidence of your staff?
Oh, he was unbelievable. I mean, anytime you can add a pitcher of his caliber to a team that we already felt was, a contender, just get 1 run, probably be good enough.
Right,
and
yeah.
it was for him.
Exactly. It is roster changing when you can add someone like that, and it really depends. I mean, whether you're the 1 seed out of the region or the 3, I mean, you're still going to get some talent top to bottom there. So, wow, District 7. That's a wild one. All right, we are on to District 6, 4 state bids. These teams are going to be coming out of the Central Valley North, Central Valley South, the North Star, and the Stearns County South. That is the Kimball Express, Cold Spring Rockies, Watkins Clippers, Buffalo Bulldogs, Hamel Hawks, Hutchinson Huskies, Loretto Larks, Maple Lake Lakers, Maple Plain Diamond Devils, and the St. Martin Martins. Jordan, did you want to go through some of these?
Yeah. Well, do you want to cover the teams we're picking?
Let's do
go
that.
way. So yeah, we've got Kimball as one of our bids coming out of the Central Valley North. And then the other 3 we actually have coming from the North Star League. We've got Maple Lake, Hutchinson, and Buffalo. So congrats, John. You're going. It's official now.
Of the people in this room, you are the only bid appointed. So congratulations.
Hutch get an automatic bid because they're hosting?
I think that Hutchinson...
I think that's the rules, yeah.
Used to be a long time ago.
I will say this. I think Hutchinson has a lot of talent, and when you get into a year like they're getting into, it's just all hands on deck, and I like kind of that momentum coming into the year, and I think that's what gave them that pick. Some other teams out there that were deserving. I mean, Loretto Larks feel like they never miss state, and it makes me, sometimes it really pisses me off because they always are just finding ways.
Well, yeah, we're going to leave them off here, and then when they're in the final
inevitably
weekend, we're going to say, well, we missed
exactly.
it. But how could we?
We should have known
because
they always do. It's tough to bet against Maple Lake, a team that's just recently coming off a state title, and they've got their core. They're not missing much. I mean, as far as you guys know, that roster still remains.
Yeah, it's I think basically what it has been.
Yeah,
but yeah, and then teams like
leaving Watkins off, huh? Interesting.
Oh yeah, no, I just noticed that. Yeah, and then the Rockies as well. I feel bad about that, but
well, those are two teams too that are coming into like a lot of these that are coming into B from C.
Right,
it's
I think
a little different.
Maybe two teams that weren't prepared to come in. Maybe weren't thinking they weren't necessarily a for sure B going into the state tournament last year, but because of maybe success points, it creeped them over to B. So
both teams that could prove us wrong. I think one team I want to touch on in this district is St. Martin, because they kind of feel like the odd duck here, the one Stearns County team. We've maybe touched on this before, where we've talked about like there are teams where you kind of think that is what C baseball
That's
is.
a C team.
That's a C team.
I'll just say it. I don't care.
A tiny town, it's local guys, whatever. St. Martin, I think, could prove us wrong because maybe they're playing for something like that. They're like, well, you know what? You're going to stick us in this district. We'll show you. That kind of deal.
Yeah, you can't bet against a team like that. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder the entire way. But we pick our Bulldogs from Buffalo, and a team that out of the North Star League last year, when we talk about Region 12C last year, kind of ran it over, and there's just so much talent on the roster and top end pitching. They can hit. I mean, that's another thing. It's like some of these teams have arms, but maybe they won't be able to push 2 or 3 runs across the board. No, they're averaging 6, 7, 8, 9 runs.
We on previous episodes talked about all 4 of our teams in that district last year, where we kind of got knocked out early, but then between Litchfield and Delano, you guys had a long region tournament where it was you played a ton of games, ton of different days. Litchfield, you were there for thousands of hours. But then Buffalo, to get that 1 seed was it you 2 tell games. Us it was 3, you won 3 total games and just kind of rolled through.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was easy by any means. And we did play some close games, but we did what we expected to do, to be honest, and it worked out well for us. And obviously, getting the number 1 pick and getting a guy like Max Otto was a huge carrot for us. That was the goal, and so I think when I look at this district again, I go back to that point about a lot of state tournament experience across the board, and so it's going to be tough. I think I compare it to the old Region 12C. This feels very similar in nature to that, but almost better top to bottom, and so it's not going to be an easy path by any means.
Right. I look at Hamel Hawks, an unknown team. I think they've gone really young, so I don't expect a lot out of that group. Of course, they could surprise us. You just never know. New manager, new young team, but it's tough to bet on that. Maple Plain, a team that got pushed up to B by I think a single point. A little bit frustrating, I think, for them, because they look at themselves as a C team.
The Mike Frericks pickup at the end of the year,
right? Kind of burned them a little bit. So Maple Plain, they will. I mean, it's a slog, and they know it too, and it's going to be maybe a tough year, but a team that if their guys show up, you never know. On a good day, they can beat a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
So,
and you look through the ones you don't have on here. St. Martin, so somebody will grab a Scott Leeser.
Yep.
Loretto, somebody probably grab a Miles Nablo, and Watkins, somebody probably grab Geislinger. I can't think of who the Cold Spring Rockies.
Can I say this?
Is.
The only reason I didn't take Cold Spring, they have this. I think his name's Hennon.
Yep.
He was potentially going to stick around, and then he got signed by some league. He was going to pitch for the Rockies, but he just got signed about 4 or 5 days ago.
He's pitching professionally.
Now, yeah. He would have probably been a top 1 or 2 pitcher in this district, and I would have given Cold Spring a nod if he would have stuck around.
They're typically a solid team. And then Kimball, the one non-North Star League team we picked, they've just kind of always been a staple. They always seem to make it.
They do.
They do have that good veteran core that finds a way to get in.
Yeah, I find it hard to bet against them. I like Kimball. I like what they do. I like kind of what they stand for, and they are just gritty and they find ways to win. They're a veteran-led team. So I like the Express, and they will. I think they'll find a way out to get a bid. So that is District 6. All right, now we are to District 5. 2 state bids out of these teams. Out of the high 10, we've got Bluffton Braves, Northwest Border, Bemidji Blue Ox, the Resorters, Alexandria Black Sox, Carlos Cougars, and the Red River, the Ada Athletics, Dilworth Rail Dogs, Fergus Falls Hurricanes, and the Sabin Mets. You guys have any input on any of these teams? I mean, obviously Bluffton, a team that is maybe on a revenge tour of sorts. I mean, Jordan, do you want to talk about that?
I think. Well, yeah, we'll go over that. Bluffton, one of the 2 bids we're picking here is Bluffton. They could definitely be on a revenge tour. They've had, over the past few seasons, they've had run-ins with, ineligibility type things. Is that
roster-related
type stuff? Whatever it may be. I don't know. We don't need to get into the dirty stuff there or whatever. But they're a team that
2023 made it to the final weekend.
Yep.
Correct. Did they end up losing to
Maple
Lake? Okay,
so and that was a crazy game too, where Maple Lake, we kind of had it, and then a pinch hit grand slam off of Maple Lake's number 1.
Yeah,
that was wild. And then it was a very close game after that, and just barely hung on. But yeah, a good team that we're picking to be in. That's what I have to say.
And
about
Bluffton is kind of that similar to St. Martin. They're surrounded by C teams in their league, and they're that only team that's going to end up going.
Yeah.
To
well,
be,
I mean, a lot of these too. Carlos, that's a small town. Ada, Dilworth. Come on.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Well, but it is what
rosters,
it is.
But man, it's just how it goes.
Yeah. And the second team then out of the group that we're picking to go, and they can't say that you hate them anymore, John.
No, I don't.
Bemidji Blue Ox, we're picking them to go. We alluded to that on a previous episode where they thought, those guys.
Everybody down south hates.
They count us out. They hate us.
Hates the Bemidjis of the world. No, we've got you for a state bid, and a good team that obviously has the ability to. They pull from a lot of talented players up there. When we played them, they were real tough in state. They bested us, and I think they even won another game after that. So it's tough to kind of gauge because you're going off a lot of history of that old C, and you're going into now this new B. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've got Bemidji coming out of that. And as far as teams that are maybe are notable omissions there, I don't have a lot of other information. I mean, Ryan or Johnny, do you have any info on our Resorters or Red River?
Yeah, from my point of view, and maybe this is bulletin board type material, but I think this is the most straightforward district out of all 8 in terms of the 2 clear top 2 in my opinion. So everyone else take that for what it's worth. But
exactly.
Yeah, the only other one that's probably been in the state tournament a few times is Fergus Falls. Yep. But I do think there's a clear 1 and 2, and I think the number 3 is a little bit behind those two.
Yeah, and I think that Alexandria, for the community they have, and like they have athletes. I mean, you look at these high school tournaments now, Alexandria produces athletes left and right. Townball, how that's getting rolling in that town. I mean, obviously, what did they have what team was in Alexandria? Not the Beatles.
Yeah, North was the
It was the
team.
Beatles?
Yep.
Okay. So they have a history, and they do have a decent ballpark. It's kind of an older ballpark, but
I think I could be wrong here. I think maybe it was 2020 or 2021 they went to the state tournament, and that maybe was the last time they had been there. And I don't know their history beyond that, but yeah, we feel like the two we picked are the two. So if you're in one of the teams in the other two leagues that make up that district, prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong. That's right. All right. Well, good. Let's move on to District 4, and this is all going to come out of the Victory Class B, and that is the Avon Lakers, Buckman Billy Goats, Foley Lumberjacks, Fort Ripley Rebels, Nisswa Lightning, Sobieski Skis, and the St. Stephen Steves.
This is a fun one.
This is fun, and I do like it when it is just one league representing an entire district. I think that is cool, because obviously these teams are going to be seeing each other a lot. They're going to be battling. Teams that we have making it out of District 4 with the 3 state bids are the Buckman Billy Goats, the Foley Lumberjacks, and the Sobieski Skis. And boy, I see Nisswa Lightning, and they're not circled on my sheet here, and it is a little weird, because I've been a big fan of Nisswa's team. We got to watch them a lot in 2023 when we hosted. But boy, they have a fun team. They're they're hitting tanks left and right. I'm trying to think of the main fella on that squad, the bearded, the big fella that would hit bombs. I know they have a Jeremiah Pepcorn, and he's a beast. Yep. And these are aging guys, and I think that maybe played into my decision more so, that Nisswa's roster maybe, whenever your best players are starting to become your oldest players on the squad, you eventually see some sort of regression there. But that's a tough team to leave off the list.
Yeah, I'll be interesting to see what Sobieski looks like. They won the state tournament in 2014. They won the state tournament in 2021. And then they had got bumped up to Class B, I think, on 2 separate occasions. And now that we're reclassified, they land in Class B. And I remember going to state board meetings, and them they weren't complaining. They're just like, you keep bumping us up to B, and we get it. But there's a sustainability factor that Sobieski doesn't probably have compared to somebody closer to where we are. Okay. So I will be very interested to see, what's left over from the 2021 state championship team. And that year, they won the state championship, and they had every inning pitched by a drafty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as opposed to 2014, when they had every single inning pitched by the same guy, Tyler Gendro. So there'll be an interesting one to me. The one you're leaving off, really, that I'm surprised about, or we are leaving off. You kicked me out of the room, but Avon.
Yep.
I'm an Avon guy. I'm gonna ride or die with Avon.
I know.
But
I was gonna say the same.
You gotta keep somebody off, and like you said, Nisswa might be getting a little older, and you don't know what putting them in Class B. And I don't look at it as being Delano. I don't. In John, you could agree or disagree. I don't look as Delano got bumped up to B. These are all teams that were in Class C last year. I don't feel like we got moved up, because we're not going to be playing anybody that was really A, or even the teams that were B a couple of years ago. There's 2 or 3 maybe. So these are all just the Class C teams that have been going to state tournament a lot. So that's but I don't know if that's going to shy people away, or that's going to make people say, yeah, I'm 36, it's time to be done. I'm 32, it's time to just be done, and I don't want to be in B,
Right.
So Buckman, we've given them a bid, and they have been very successful year in and year out. Do we know? Is this the same roster coming back? Do we have any intel on that? We're assuming.
Yeah,
we haven't heard any different.
I haven't heard anything different. I just every time I've seen Buckman, I don't. How did they end up last year? Do we have any idea where they ended up? I know that they maybe won 1 or 2, if not 3 games. So
typically a final weekend team.
Mm-hmm.
They are. They 2023 they made it to the semis. Yeah,
22 they made a state championship.
Right. So a really good team.
Was that with Nisswa?
Yeah, us and Watertown lost to Nisswa and Buckman.
There you go.
So yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and you're never gonna know until the season starts, because I don't think we don't release guys just because they retire.
Right.
Because you only got 8, you got to give them a call.
Yeah, you'll be
right.
back.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think I was between Foley and Avon on the picks, and I gave the edge to Foley on that. So, yeah, a tough, definitely a district to watch. It's teams that are very, they know each other very well. Okay, so it'll be a fun district for whoever's hosting there.
Yeah. Very similar district, in my opinion, to District 7 in the sense of top to bottom. A lot of good teams, a lot of good arms, a lot of state tournament experience. So I agree with Ryan. I like Avon quite a bit. I wouldn't count out Nisswa. Nate Deshane, I think, is who we were referencing.
That is
earlier.
correct. That's the man.
They, sure, they're getting older, but I'll stick up for the older guys. So I like them still quite a bit. But
yes.
But again, whoever the 3 teams that come out, they are all going to be very well deserving.
Absolutely.
And St. Stephen made a state tournament last year too.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
You look at, you said it before. It's like, you look at each one of these districts. 80% of the teams in every district might have made C State last year. So you really gotta whittle it down, and it's tough. It's tough to leave some of these names off the list, and you can absolutely forward any sort of hate that you want into our comments. That's fine. We get it. We are going to move on to District 3, which has 4 state bids. Out of the DRS League, Faribault Lakers, Lonsdale Aces, Montgomery Mallards, New Prague Orioles, Prior Lake Mudcats, Shakopee Coyotes, St. Benedict Saints, Union Hill Bulldogs, Webster Sox, and out of the RVL, Eagle Lake Expos, Jordan Brewers, and the St. Clair Wood Ducks. So, I mean, as far as districts go, I mean, we're looking at, is that 14 teams out of a district?
Yeah, we've got. Oh wait, we'll do some quick
12.
math here.
12.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's a lot. That is a lot of teams. Only a third of that district making a state bid.
Right out of the gate here, I will say, I don't know a ton about a lot of the teams in this district. Some background on some of them, but this was kind of a harder one to sort through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I had to really dig into just the history of these teams, and it was more on that, history of it.
One of the things that's interesting, like, you have New Prague Orioles in it, and New Prague is, from a high school standpoint for baseball, I believe that's a 4A school. But then when you get to town team, New Prague basically makes up a lot of the surrounding teams around them, like the St. Benedict Saints and Union Hill. So it's like, oh God, why isn't New Prague more of a powerhouse? Well, they're supplying a lot of these smaller towns around them, including like St. Patrick, who's in Class A, with ball players. So that's, I think, what makes it a little tricky.
It is.
Too.
It is.
The one I like here is Webster, and going back to 2023 when we were hosting, I remember I think we were all a little disappointed because their manager took an at bat and he wasn't rostered, so they weren't eligible for the playoffs. And I think in 2022 they had kind of made it back to state tournament for the first time in forever, but they had a really good following. So I know we were all disappointed that we weren't going to see them because they probably would have came out of their region back then. I mean, Jordan's Jordan.
I don't even know if I've mentioned who we're going to give the bids to.
yeah.
I
Oh,
should say that. I should say that.
You want to cover the four bids?
Out of that district, our 4 bids that we see going to state: Montgomery Mallards, Union Hill Bulldogs, Webster Sox, and the Jordan Brewers.
Yeah.
And that leaves a lot of teams that, that we just don't know a ton about.
You're leaving off America's team there. I think St. Benedict refers to himself as America's team on Twitter, and I think that is awesome.
Hey.
But a nickname doesn't always get
From
you in,
a
I guess.
branding standpoint, that's an elite choice. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan or Johnny, do you have any input on District 3?
Yeah, the 2 teams I'd watch are Faribault and New Prague. As Ryan said, New Prague does supply, to a lot of different teams in the area, but still another team that has been to the state tournament in recent years. They do have some higher end arms, so I do like them. And Faribault, same thing. So I think I kind of look at this region as a little more top heavy in some ways than others, but that top, any 4 of them could make it.
Right.
Well, New Prague, not to keep hitting on the draftee thing, but the times they don't go, typically you see a lot of New Prague guys on different teams that have been drafted. I know that I can't remember which team had drafted a few New Prague, maybe 3 New Prague guys, and all 3 of them wore different uniforms, and I thought that was funny. But to your point, some top-end arms, so even if they don't go, I mean, that's a team that could because they got solid arms.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think unless you guys have anything else on that, Ryan, are you good with that?
No, I'm good with that.
District 2, on to District 2. This is a 2-state bid district. We talk about, we mentioned the CCV Classic Cannon Valley. They have an American and national.
That's cool.
That's
the
always
American
fun.
National League. That is tough. UFF tough.
But out of the American, the Northfield Knights; out of the National, the Red Wing Aces; and then we've got the Twin Rivers League in District 2, which is made up of the Austin Blue Jays, Austin Greyhounds, Dodge County Diamondbacks, Owatonna Aces, Plainview Bucks, Rochester Roadrunners, Stewartville Racine Sharks, and the Winona Chiefs. So out of that grouping in District 2, our podcast is going to select the Northfield Knights to get a bid, and also out of the CCV, the Red Wing Aces. Not a lot of love for our Twin Rivers brothers here, but I mean, it's tough in these 2-state bid districts when you've got all these teams. There's a good chance something might shake out. The Twin Rivers League is an area that I think we as a podcast need to investigate more and maybe try to find somebody that can give us more insight into that kind of that southeast region of Minnesota.
I do have some college teammates, some older guys like us that are hanging on some of those teams. Like I've got some college buddies with Winona and Owatonna, and I know that they have teams that can compete. So, yeah, I mean, we don't know a ton about them, but that's not to say they couldn't go.
It's more, I think it's just maybe knowing more like Red Wing Aces. Red Wing's been a solid team that's pushed, farther into tournaments more recently.
They have a clear-cut one in Aaron Johnson.
Yep.
He can go win any game for you, and
right.
I think he's a guy that could definitely carry that team through this district.
Right. And in Northfield, I mean, you talk about an area that should be, sustaining a pretty good roster. I mean, that's a good part of baseball area. And I don't know a ton about the Northfield Knights. I took some time to look into that team a little bit, and they've had some success the last couple of years. So that's really what I'm going off of with Northfield. Ryan, do you have anything else you want to add to that district?
We had Northfield and Delano back in 2023 state tournament, and I think they lost they did lose their first game. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a solid area. If they're, Northfield's always got a pretty good high school program. I think they're 3A for high school baseball. If you can grab a Farmington guy, you can grab a Lakeville guy because you're right in that area too. But Stewartville Racine, I think they've broken through the state tournament a few years. They're one I've noticed has always had a pretty good record in the past. So they're one to keep an eye on. You never know what's going to come out of Austin, either one of their teams, or like even Rochester. I know Rochester's in B, and they can only have players that have a Rochester address, but you still think you should be able to get 9 of them that are pretty damn
pretty
good.
solid.
So,
yeah.
That one. Yeah, I mean, I like the Red Wing pick. Northfield is that's pretty solid too. But yeah, there's a lot of it. Could go a lot of different ways in this one.
Sure. All right, that's going to leave us with our last district, and that is District 1. Three state bids out of the following teams. Out of the Eastern Mini North, Hinckley Knights, Princeton Panthers, and out of the Eastern Mini South, Chisago Lakes Bulldogs, Isanti Redbirds, and the North Branch Nighthawks. Out of the Sauk Valley East, the Cold Spring Springers, and out of the Sauk Valley West, the Sartell Stone Ponies, the Sauk Rapids Cyclones, and the St. Joseph Joes. Jordan, do you want to go over who we believe will get the bids out of District 1?
Yep. So 3 bids. We're going Isanti, Cold Spring Springers, and the Sartell Stone Ponies. Those are the 3.
Yeah. I think that when we looked at this right away, like a Cold Spring team, anytime you get the Springers in a district now, anytime you see that name, it just feels wrong to not have them included. They just seem like they're always getting through. With that roster too, maybe getting older, but at the same time, I know that there's been some younger pickups with that group, and they're always going to be solid. The Sartell Stone Ponies are always kind of the classically good team out of the Sauk Valley. They're always tough every year in, year out.
They're a good team that we'll kind of see what their roster looks like, because they've got a young dude that's playing at Wake Forest, just raking.
It up.
I think Cade Lewis, I think is
they
his
do
name.
a good job of pumping any sort of highlight, and I mean they're good highlights. So that's the one thing.
That's a guy where he could definitely be a difference maker for a team like that, but you don't know, like, will he be playing in a summer collegiate league, which as we stated before, but like you don't know. So we expect him to, but even without a guy like that, good roster.
Very good roster. The last team you mentioned, Isanti, I don't have a ton of info on Isanti. I know that it's another one of those teams where I think in the past couple years, just off of pure the success in playoffs, I think that's what gave us that 3rd bid. Jordan, Johnny, jump in here.
Yeah,
I mean, this is kind of where I know that you're a Hinckley guy. You like going. Can we talk about that for a second? You're
Hinckley?
a big Hinckley guy.
Yeah.
Don't always bring your equipment up to Hinckley, but
yeah, we do the Hinckley Invitational every summer. That last weekend in June. Good time to get away, relax. We like to always say we're getting hot for Hinckley in the days leading up to it. But we always have a good time in Hinckley. So soft spot in my heart for the Knights and Brennan Field up there. I will say St. Joseph Joes, we played them last year in the state tournament. Very good team. Definitely one that personally I would maybe put over Sartell as a bid. I know they have some good arms. They can hit. They play a really good brand of ball. So a lot of respect for the Joes.
Yeah, and I think, Max Otto moved to Milwaukee, and they're not going to have to run into him during districts, so I think they'll be okay. I think St. Joe's is a team to keep an eye on out of there, and Chisago Lakes made it back in 2023. Other than that, I think it's been a little bit of time for Hinckley, but never know what they're going to look like. But yep, St. Joe's would be kind of that 3A 3B team to me with the Stone Pones.
I don't know if this guy's still rostered, but they had a catcher that we invited to play the national anthem. If you watch the Townball tour of St. Joseph, I forget his name. I think it might be like a Hemish or something, but. Guy would just rip the guitar, to the national anthem like Jimi Hendrix style.
He
shreds. And we were lucky enough in Litchfield in 2023 to have him out, I think, on a Saturday morning, kind of right before that first game. And boy, he set the tone with one of the best national anthems I've ever heard.
Makes a guy proud to be an American.
Yeah, exactly. I get all warm inside thinking about that. But that alone it almost pushed me over the edge to get St. Joseph Joe's that last bid. But that's where we're at. A lot of questionable decisions. I can already tell, like you look like Johnny and Ryan over here probably shaking their head at some of the picks, but that's the cross we bear, and we're just going to have to go forward with it. And I'm excited to hear the feedback.
Yeah. You got a Final Four.
Final Four. Whoa.
Okay.
Jeez, I don't know.
We did one last week.
I know.
Did we do a Final Four, or did we just pick a champ?
No, I think I rattled off a random Final Four.
We are going to live pick a Final Four right now.
I'm ripping through some stuff here, guys. I'm gonna give you what I think. Jordan, I'm gonna give you. You got to give me a nod of approval here, okay? Yep. Don't be afraid to disagree either.
All right.
Boy, there are some good teams here. Tell me what you think. I just wrote this is very secretive to this point.
Okay.
What do we think about those four?
Ooh, this is interesting. Okay, I like this. However,
okay. You can say it on air if you think there's a team that I left out.
Are we rolling with these four that you wrote?
You can switch one out 100%.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're not even going to let you know who we switched out. Or maybe we will.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, we're not going to do it. Okay,
don't
we're not doing it. Here's what we're going with.
Here's our Final Four.
Here's what we're going with. Final Four. We've got Young America, Jordan, the Cold Spring Springers, and Buffalo.
Wow.
Do you catch what
I like what you did
Those
there.
are our Final Four. And I think we have to pick a champ. Can I just do it?
I think you should, yeah.
Here's what I'm going to do to just really put the pressure on across the table over here. We're picking Buffalo to win it all just to put the pressure on Johnny here.
Just want to point out there, Jordan, we're sitting in the same room as the Class C state champions this year, the Litchfield Blues, and the Class B state champion.
I thought
Buffalo
we were going to go an episode
this is
sure.
No way. This is way too fun of a bit to go without. So,
okay.
In the words of no bias.
No bias.
No bias.
Johnny, hang the banner.
And
How
I'm
does
kidding.
it feel to be the champion of the world?
Preseason champs.
I mean, it's emotional. I'll say that. A lot of work to be done. I mean, we are in April, but yeah, the commemorative prints, they're on their way.
Well,
great. That's awesome.
Of these Final Four teams, of any of these teams we picked, of any of these teams we didn't pick, I mean, good luck.
I think I was already receiving kind of like veiled threats from Bluffton. So sorry,
us.
Bluffton. Yeah, in my heart, yeah, definitely you're top four and you're probably going to win it all. But on paper here, we got Buffalo. So
Bluffton, we want to fire you up. We want to push you to that next level. And when you win, we want you to add us and say, you guys,
we were kind of the reason that we got you going. So,
yeah.
Right. They hate that we're a Pro North podcast.
Yes.
It just doesn't fit the narrative, right? No, that's it. What a fun time it is just to kind of go over the preseason stuff and throw out some haphazard predictions. It's always a good time, and it doesn't get any easier next week. We're gonna have Ryan Hayes most likely conducting a Class C prediction.
We're actually going to lock him in this room until we record next and just let him be alone with his thoughts on it.
And we just have no idea which direction he'll go as far as champion and state and who's going to win. There's been no indication of where he'll pick. So that's exciting. Oh, but what a fun day. John, fun having you here. Great guest. We're already talking about maybe bringing you back. So hopefully,
anytime. Just like being drafted, I'll be here.
Yes, you'll be our first rounder for sure. It was a great interview. It was a fun talk today. Class B, let us know. Let us know if you agree, whether you probably disagree. Sound off in the comments. Also mention this too. Don't be afraid to subscribe to whatever platform. It feels like we've maybe not mentioned that enough. If you subscribe, get notifications. We want as many people on board as possible as we get into this 2025 season.
That's what people do, right? You say, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Hit that bell, like and subscribe. I'll even mention this. I think it maybe some love just for our subscribers. Our first subscriber was a friend of mine, Jim Anderson, and I think he deserves a little love on that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
To be that guy, I think we dropped our first podcast at midnight on a Wednesday morning, and he was subscribing about 10 minutes later. So that was fun. Just continue to like and subscribe and follow, and we appreciate it. And it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, we appreciate all the feedback. Keep sending us your thoughts on everything.
Absolutely. Ryan, do you have any wise words to leave us with?
No, I can send us home, round third, and send us home, and if we're cool with that.
Yeah.
We're cool with
that. All right. Hey, until next time, free JP.